Hello, I hope we're all doing well. Welcome back to the Nick and Nadeshot show. Yeah, we've had too many videos on this, and I do apologize for that. If you guys somehow have no idea about the situation so far, I will link our first two videos on this down below. A pretty big argument going down between Nickmercs and Nadeshot as Nickmercs departs the 100Thieves organization, says the promises were not fulfilled. Nadeshot responded with kind of a non-response, which is what pretty much summarized their discussion so far. And I was very surprised to see Nickmercs come out on Twitter last night and confirm, yes, about what was actually promised, that being allegedly 5% initially of the organization, that being 100Thieves, which is of course a pretty amazing thing considering the evaluation right now, according to Forbes listing, being $100 million for the org. So about $5 billion should be owed to Nickmercs if he had that 5% currently. But let's break it down for all of you guys, because I know a lot of you are either fans of Nadeshot or fans of Nickmercs, and certainly those fan bases are going at each other and trying to kind of argue it out as to exactly what is owed in this case. And along with that, thanks to Slasher as well, who was initially told by Nickmercs, and then we had Nickmercs on top of that replying to a Keemstar tweet confirming that he was owed, or initially promised, or they were discussing about him actually being owed 5% initially when he joined 100Thieves. I do want to get this out of the way. First of all, I know you guys know this, but there are going to be a few people out there who think, oh my gosh, it's just like the Tfue case, right? He is legally contracted and Nadeshot owes him 5%. No, Red Eye points this out. I'm sure many of you guys know this. It was never written down in ink and pen. This was never contracted out. It was a word of mouth discussion apparently where Nick was actually promised 5% of the organization very early on. And apparently though, if you bring that Slasher tweet back up, he was actually contracted and given some equity. According to that contract, it was just much less than that 5%. So if that is true, apparently Nickmercs does have still some ownership and equity inside the 100Thieves organization. It's just much less than the 5% he was initially promised. And here's where the whirlwind of discussion comes back and forth. I would love for you guys to comment down below, because I'm sure many of you guys are, like I said before, Nadeshot or Nickmercs fans, and you guys can discuss your details and reasonings down below, which I'm super curious what you guys think about this, as to exactly why you think Nickmercs deserves it, or why you think maybe Nadeshot does not owe him anything at all. And let me also state, because I did this incorrectly when it came to the FaZe, of course, FaZe Clan and Tfue case, I initially kind of was taking somewhat of sides, kind of a bit going back and forth because it was such a complicated case. I am not taking a side here. I'm only curious what you guys think about this, because there are swell arguments. There are great arguments on either side of the debate here. So firstly, you look at Nickmercs, initially with this organization, one of their longest term content creators, and arguably, especially one of their bigger names as well. You look at what he brought to the table, not only from the Call of Duty scene, the competition scene, as well as when Fortnite came in, he blew up along with 100Thieves. He was certainly one of their most well-recognized names, and certainly a big contribution to the organization itself, getting their name out there. I will not take fault in that. And then you look at the other side of things as to what Nadeshot's brought to the table, and the list does go on. I would say maybe, in my opinion, a bit longer than what Nickmercs had initially brought. But let me not throw that under the rug, guys. Nickmercs definitely helped this organization out a ton. He brought a ton of recognition to them. He grew alongside them, and he was a big part as to where they came to be, I would say, content-wise and recognizability. You guys already got mad at me yesterday for saying words that don't exist. But when I personally look at a name like Nadeshot, one of the most notorious names in Call of Duty history, making this organization himself, he initially brought over such a large viewer base and fan base with his persona alone. Then you look at his recent success as well with his Call of Duty team. They brought up their first LAN victory, so they are seeing some pretty decent success. You look at their first season their LCS team for League of Legends had. It was amazing. A first-year team for League of Legends to go to Worlds it's an immense victory, guys. An immense victory and accomplishment. Although you look at their past split for League of Legends, yes, it was not very successful at all. I believe it was actually a dead last place finish. But either way, what they've successfully done in League of Legends throughout their first year of that initial roster was impeccable. And along with that being said, all of the sponsorships, the partnerships, the investors brought in by Nadeshot, it cannot be also swept under the rug. This guy has done a lot of this by himself. He has brought in a substantial portion of what 100Thieves is, and he is the face of 100Thieves. And very lastly, alongside all of those investors and all of those partnerships and sponsorships that we have seen across the last few months, as well as across the last year or so, you know, Totino's and Cash App and Rocket Mortgage, all brought in by Nadeshot. You look at his, of course, as well, the #1 esports clothing line, and I think it's undisputed, unarguable as well. He has the best clothing line, the most wanted clothing line in esports history, I would say, and he's done a very swell job with that on top of everything else. And I know it seems like I am all Nadeshot, but again, I am not taking a side, because when it comes to two former friends, whatever friendship was, I know there has been history between these two guys of butting heads back and forth. But when it comes to making a promise, whether it's in ink and pen or whether it's, of course, a face-to-face discussion, yes, of course, morally, you might think he is obligated to actually pay that 5%. Maybe maybe not legally. So yes, it looks a bit bad for Nadeshot in that term of things, but you always need to think about this guy has brought so much to the organization, along with Nickmercs. They have both brought so much, but for me personally, when I look into this kind of thing, I think Nadeshot has he's developed this organization. He's the face of the organization. He has brought in a large majority of that, but it also comes down to as well, you got to think legality-wise or even just contractually-wise, it also could come down to the fact that Nadeshot could just not afford to pay Nickmercs the 5%. When you think about, like I said before, all of the investors, all of the partners he has brought in, what if in fact he only has a slight majority stake in the company, and if he were to forfeit 5% to Nickmercs, he therefore maybe give up his majority stake, which would be against the #1 rule for an organization owner. So maybe he just can't legally or contractually even give the 5% that he initially promised Nickmercs, which then begs the question, why is he not paying him some sort of lump sum or something to quell or to quench all of these mean things being said about both parties right now? So that's my overview on the subject, guys. Of course, I'm super curious what you guys think in the comment section down below. What do you think both of these players, both of these organizational members brought to 100 Thieves? And you compare, of course, what exactly they brought to each other. Do you think Nadeshot owes Nickmercs anything? That's the debatable question I can't even answer for all of you, but that's the breakdown of the argument so far. I do not expect either member to come out with any additional details or any additional arguments because, like I said in my previous videos, it looks bad for both parties right now because both have their certain arguments. I know a lot of you guys are going to say morally, yes, Nadeshot, he owes Nickmercs something, but legally he owes him nothing. And then there's a discussion brought to the table that Nadeshot, he made a lot of 100 Thieves. Obviously, he's brought everything that it's come to be. When he initially made that promise for 5% to Nickmercs, he probably had no idea his company organization would be worth $100 million a couple years later. So the debate goes on. I expect nothing's going to be said details-wise any further, although obviously I could be wrong because I didn't think Nickmercs would have said the exact details that he did last night. But as always, my name is Jake. I hope you guys all enjoy it. A super controversial story coming at the end of this week, but I hope you guys all enjoy, and I'll see you back here sometime soon breaking down more esports news. Until next time, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for subscriptions as well. We are slowly approaching 30,000 subs, and again, once more, thank you all so much. I'll see you guys next time.